Yesterday, I posted a video and then I made it private because a lot of people criticized me. Oh, you're not teaching the Catholic faith, um, trying to help people. You're not bringing them towards the truth. And somebody asked me on Twitter if I would tell a couple that are living, cohabitating together, and they have children, would I tell them to separate in order for them to get married? And I said, no, I wouldn't tell them to separate. And people were kind of shocked that, "Oh, Robert, you're not following the Catholic teaching. You're not enforcing the catechism. You're not traditional. You're fake trad," and so forth. There would have been a time in my life I would have been very, very rigid, and I would have taken the catechism and said, if you don't follow this, you're going to hell. And I'd have said that and I've enforced that. But life has taught me to teach the faith with love, with compassion, and to walk with people and to lead them to the truth. Many years ago, I was on a mission in Mexico, and we were going out into rural villages, trying to catechize them, bring them to the sacraments. If couples weren't married, to try and get their marriages regularized, having marriages in the local church. And this was, many of these couples weren't getting the 6 months marriage preparation. Many of these couples had lived together for 20, 30 years, had children, and we were trying to bring them into the church so that they could bring the sacraments into their lives. And you can be faced with incredibly difficult situations. And people were asking me, would I have told those couples? No, I would not. No, I would not. Even though they were baptized Catholics at some stage, they were never catechized. They're telling a man, no, you have to leave your partner and go live somewhere else until you get married. These guys didn't have enough food to eat. They didn't have enough money for their basic necessities. They didn't have enough money to actually give them medical care. They didn't have enough, they didn't have enough room where they lived to actually house their own family. Never mind trying to bring church teaching into the everyday moment of their lives. Now, and for I'm not here advocating at all situational ethics and saying, if people understand me. And if we remember back, Pope Benedict, we all remember that famous time Pope Benedict came back, I think it was South Africa, and he said that prostitutes should be using condoms. And people slated him, saying, oh, the church is changing their teaching on contraception. The church is allowing condoms to be used. And, that's not at all what Pope Benedict said. He just said, we should not have a greater evil, in infecting somebody with a disease that could kill them. And you have to take precautions. And so, I'm trying to just give a message when you're trying to bring the light of the gospel into the everyday lives of people whose lives aren't perfect, who are living in very difficult situations. There can be different levels of issues that person is facing. And you're trying to bring them towards the sacraments, you're trying to bring them towards the gospel, you're trying to bring them towards encountering Christ. You're trying to bring them to Christ, not yourself. So, the last thing we should ever do when we're trying to be a missionary is to draw people to ourselves, to our to make ourselves up to be the Pharisees. We have to draw people to Christ, and you have to walk with them and understand all of the different issues that they're facing. Sometimes you can evangelize one person in a family, and yet the rest of the family will hate the faith because of the way that person has changed. And we have to bring the whole family, the partner, children, towards the faith. And that requires walking with them, helping them, supporting them. If you rush into a situation saying, "Oh, look, you're living in mortal sin. You have to stop that now. Otherwise, you're going to hell. You're going to be damned." You know, some Catholics have done this. They've walked into a situation that said, "You're going to hell." They're already living in hell. You know, they've no food, they've no medical care, they have a sick child in the house. This is the realities that you're faced with if you ever wanted to go into mission. You're walking into a situation where, you know, they're struggling with medical bills, they're struggling with to feed their family, they're struggling with a sick child that nobody wants to help them with. And you're saying now you have to separate because you're living in sin and you can't have the sacrament of marriage until you get all that sorted out. You're deluding you're holding yourself up as a Pharisee if you're walking into that situation to try and tell people what to do. You have to walk with them, help them, support them, pray for them. And sometimes it'll come back to us that know the faith. We have to pray more. We have to be more saints. You know, we have to be more saintly in our own lives. We have to. You know, the prayer can help. Prayer can work and a community can work. And so evangelization in 2023 is a very challenging thing. To be a saint in 2023 is very, very challenging. It is. If it was easy, it would be done yesterday. And I'm bringing this back to Ireland now. You know, we have, 8,000 couples, women, men, that have had abortions in Ireland. We've you know, a generation that hasn't been catechized, that doesn't know the faith. You know, how do we get in there? If you bring the catechism into their lives in a very blunt way and say, well, you better get to confession quick because you're going to hell. You can say that. You can say that, but for some of them, you will just turn them away from that encounter with Christ, because you will hold the Christian ideal up so high that they don't see it as something that they can even imagine getting to. And, you know, I've seen the Christian path being held up so high that, you know, you look and say, I can't get there. That's not for me. Or maybe God doesn't exist, because how could God create something that I can't reach? But God is down at our level. Christ came down to our level. He was crucified, you know, practically he wasn't crucified up there in the sky. He was crucified down so that animals could get, and, you know, the crucifixion, animals were allowed to get to the feet of these crucified people. They weren't held up that high. They were down at our level. Christ was crucified at our level, and he wants to get into our lives, and he wants to transform. So again, I wish preaching the gospel and teaching the faith was easy. I wish it was just, here's a book, here's a manual, you live this. But sometimes you have to walk with people. You have to help them. You have to understand all of the challenges they're facing and how to give them a program of life that will lead them towards Christ. You know, a spiritual program of life that will slowly lead them, their families, their children towards Christ. You know, because the transforming encounter with Christ is amazing, but it takes skill and it takes time. And, you know, this is the message I'm giving, especially to traditional Catholics that love the faith. I love the traditional Latin Mass. I think it's a profoundly mystical and beautiful experience. There's nothing more beautiful for me. But to bring that into the world now, to bring the beauty of our Catholic faith and the Catholic teaching and the Catholic ideal, the Christian ideal, the Christian faith, what Christ said in the gospel, to bring that ideal into a broken world requires the person bringing that message to be a saint first, you know, to live it first. And that's not easy. And to bring it in and to propose it as something beautiful that will engage the heart of other people. Because the key to evangelization is the metanoia, and it's the change of heart. You won't evangelize with fear. You won't evangelize by telling somebody that they're going to hell when they're living in hell today. You won't evangelize a family that is facing multiple problems, and you want to bring the light of the gospel into their lives by creating more fear and more anxiety. That's not evangelization. You know, it's proposing the message, Christ's message, and leading souls slowly into that encounter with Christ. You know, leading their children, their partner, and proposing it over and over again. You know, because you know there. You know, it's not easy. It's not easy. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not an advocate. I'm not proposing, saying that situational ethics, that's not what I'm proposing here. I'm saying, how do you catechize and teach the faith? And it has to be done with prudence, with you know, walking with somebody, you know, careful, talking with them, praying with them, never condemning, never judging them, never making them feel shamed, othered, less worthy, you know, putting them down. You know, Christ always elevates those that sincerely look for him. He wants, you know, and you have to help, you have to support, you have to walk, you have to help. Otherwise, what we do is we become, you know, what was it in John? Let me just read it out. No, John, Mark, in Mark 23, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 23. And Jesus said to the crowds and to disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, they do whatever they teach you and follow it. But do not do as they do, for they do not practice what they teach. Now, Christ didn't come to abolish the Mosaic law, but he came to highlight the, you know, you cannot neglect the realities of people's lives, the complexities, and just dismiss them. There are many people that will you know, not get involved in evangelization, not get involved in somebody's life until that person is perfect and ready to live it in a very, you know, unless you're willing to. And they will say, you should take up your cross. You should take up a cross. Many of us will, people that will say, take up your cross. You know, many people already have crosses placed on them. You know, if a family is dealing, you know, an unmarried couple is dealing with a child with an illness, they have very little money, and you come in there, they've already got crosses in their lives, and you come in there, let's place another cross on you, as if you didn't have enough. And instead of going into that situation, well, let's take some crosses off you. Let's help you finance medical care for your children. Let's help you do this. And then they would say, well, this Christianity thing has some merit in it. Maybe I'll get involved. Maybe I will change my life. Maybe I will see something. You know, if you go into situations telling people, now you need to take up your cross. And you don't know the crosses that person already has, that they haven't taken up, but that are there in their lives. You know, you can cause a lot more harm. So, you know, the social media and all of this, and you know, as Catholics, if we know the faith, we have to. And you've lived the catechism, and you're living the Catholic faith. If you know that, you've got an incredible grace and gift from God. How do you bring that out to the world? You have to go out into very difficult situations and slowly bring them towards the Christian perfection. The path to Christian perfection requires a program for life. So, you know, I'm just kind of pushing that message out there. Um, and, if it was easy, it would have been done yesterday. But walk with people, walk with them, help them, If you want to bring the Christian message into them, put yourself in their lives and help them with the problems that they're actually facing. It's very easy, especially in our first world culture, in Ireland and in some, in America and in our first world. It's very easy for us to see our problems and the faith in our. If you go to, I can guarantee, if you go and work in Africa or Latin America, or some of these very, very impoverished areas, it will challenge your faith like you've never seen before. It will challenge your faith. And, there's a lot of people that are poor in our own society, and to get into the lives and to help them takes a lot of courage. So, preach the faith, but don't go in there overloading situations with so much rigidity that you turn people away from the church. That, to just saying, look, I'm not getting involved here because I don't feel, I don't feel I'd be able to even get involved in that community, because it can be very, very sad. I remember one particular woman, and she went to a Latin mass. But she'd never been to one before, and I said, you should go into it. And those in the Latin mass, they judged her about her clothes and so forth, and she'll never go back, probably never go back to that experience, because she felt shamed. Really, and if that's how we're going to evangelize and catechize and show people the beauties of our faith, we will fail them. We'll drive them away. And we can do that in the church very easily. We drive people away because we hold ourselves up as so perfect that they don't see the beauty of the faith at all. We cloud Christ's presence in the church by presenting ourselves in such a light of perfection that we don't bring people to Christ anymore. And it's a great fear. Anyway, God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.